Solana's up over 8% in the last 24 hours. ETH is up over 4.4%, and Bitcoin is 1.3%. So there has been a lift in the market, exactly coinciding with the M2 money supply. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, we've got Israel and Iran still bombing each other hugely, like a lot of bombing. However, the US doesn't look as though it's going to get involved. So the markets may continue to lift up. We'll go over all that and more in today's crypto news. It is the 16th of June. Let's get amongst it. So Israel officials asked the US to join, and they are, yes, they said considering the risk. However, the information we have from this headline, which was after the fact, Trump says he hopes Israel and Iran can strike a deal. And remember that Trump is not the type of person to enter wars. He tends to leave them. That's their kind of administration, how they like to do things. More about national security as opposed to world security is my understanding. I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal. We'll see what happens. Sometimes they have to fight out, but we'll see what happens. It's still very, very early on. And Trump says these sort of things, which is just like not pertinent information to actually solve anything. We'll see. So there is potentially, this is from yesterday, almost 24 hours ago now. I don't think, yeah, there is escalation, but there's not escalation in terms of the US getting involved at this stage, unless they do get involved. So I think the markets will open fine. We'll have to see what happens. Then we've got a few other days. We've got the Fed interest rate decision on Wednesday, and then the Fed manufacturing index. So these are two big things. We have a volatile week ahead of us. I'm not sure we do. I think we're just going to have a little bit of a lifting up in week, but we have to be mindful, of course. Oil prices have surged nearly 5%. However, this is still nothing crazy when you look at over the past few weeks. This is the point here. The belief is if the market were truly concerned about a long-term conflict, oil prices would have already crossed above $100 a barrel. And if that is the case, oil should be, I think you can long oil with Bybit, and pretty soon, maybe even today, flash trade. In fact, oil prices are below, more than 10% below their recorded high last week. So that's why I think the market is not pricing in that we're about to collapse. Of course, I don't want war to happen. I just realize that humans do engage in war. Meanwhile, there's a lot of greenery in the market from what we can see here. Now let's have a look at the M2 again, because this is what we love the most. We've lined everything up as best as we can, and we can just see that it really works like clockwork. We saw our dip here. Our dip happened a couple of days early, and then we've started to bounce up, and we're going to see M2 kind of bounce up. And then we're good again until mid-July. Potentially it could be that simple. That doesn't mean that you're going long or short just on this, but you can use this as one of your tools. You factor in with RSI and narratives and whatnot and go from there. Having a look at all of the different resistance levels, let's have a look here. So we have our support down here, like 103,000 or so. This was our support turned into resistance at 106.5, something along those lines. We need to get all the way up here in order to go yeehaw, and up here to go yeehaw. But we have broken this trend line, so we are on a positive movement, is my expectation. Let's have a quick run through of all of the different Satoshi settings on a couple of tokens that are worthwhile. Sui has not gone green, so waiting for that to go green. So look at Sol has gone green only just recently, could be a long opportunity here. And Sol versus Bitcoin, which we'll go over shortly, is showing strength. Hype has gone green again. Hyperliquid is doing really well. Bitcoin is still red on the 2-hour. ETH is still red as well. Filecoin is still red. SBX has just gone green as well. There'll be a few others over there, but they're the basic things. Solana has been doing pretty well in terms of the recovery, and it bounced off the 0.5. So I hope you had some bids filled here. You actually had some bids here. You can have some here and here. They may not be filled. We may go higher, and then you'll just kind of remove these. This is showing a bit of strength, but it's still a little bit too early. I think buying the dip is better than just top blasting the current price. This is from Benny Bluntz. Benny Bluntz is a very successful trader. He always calls the top on Sol and says it's all over for this cycle. Sorry, go home. Hope you had fun. And then Sol reaches an all-time new high. However, in terms of getting the actual local tops, he does well. And he uses Elliott Waves theory, which I'm not fully understanding, but basically he tends to be far more right than wrong Sol versus Bitcoin, he sees Sol outperforming Bitcoin at this stage of the market. That doesn't mean that I would ignore Bitcoin. You make some good profits, go buy some ZBTC, do a little bit of DeFi with it, hold it, whatever you want, convert into real Bitcoin, cool. But a bit of strength in the market is what he sees. Meanwhile, the fastest horse, Hyperliquid, is doing really well. It says it's at $42, but I think it's up to $44 now. The chart's just a couple of hours old. So we're actually probably damn close to all-time high. I'm just checking on another screen here. Yeah, we just crossed our all-time high. So breaking out of this could indicate that we're going to be off to the races. The next target being $50, which when we're talking about it down here, it made sense, and it still kind of makes sense. At the same time, if we get a bit of rejection, we come on down, this is a trend line you want to be focused on. You can draw this up yourself, but over the next coming days, it'd be like 41, 42, around that. And then once it really breaks out, a target of $50 is kind of where we think it's going to happen. USDT dominance, it's starting to break down, which is what we want. We want it to come down here and eventually come down here. So a little bit of breaking down there, nothing too much. Our greedy aspect is 61, kind of minor. We're balanced, I guess, still greedy, and we're probably not going to dip down with the way M2 is looking, if that is what we're going to see. Of course, if we get a war, it's going to change. These were quite balanced earlier when we're looking at it. Now it's screwed towards the longs. Liquidations on a weekend are not going to be too high, of course. And this would indicate to me that we move on up as the market makers seek to hunt 107. So that is my kind of expectation. That's Binance. Similar here. Move up a little bit further on Bybit. And let's have a quick look at Sol and a quick look at Hype. Binance, Sol, USDT. You're still seeing, yeah, I think we move on up just slightly as the market makers push on up with this. Although Bybit has a lot more, so that's kind of not what we were hoping for. I mean, in general, like the market makers still fighting its traders, but they just tend to be more right than wrong. Hyperliquid doesn't have a whole lot of resistance, and right now, because at its all-time high, could enter price discovery. I'm not going to really pay attention too much to this because I don't think there's a whole lot of money to be made off Hype in terms of market liquidations, but we'll see. Having a quick look at Masari, really do like Masari. It's a premium membership. There's no referral or anything. I think you get a discount with like Seb, I think, for like 20% off first month or whatever. But as we start to enter into more of a cleaner part of the cycle, I think, where there's value in things, this is what I do. And when I go to the gym, I just turn on voice and it just text to speeches recaps, and that's what I do. Better than, more lucrative than music. Metaplanet's hitting 110,000 BTC holdings, so I think we're going to start to see some plays in the market, especially if they're supported by Robinhood and whatnot, where we can enter into other companies that start to buy these things, and we can get massive price appreciation that way. Metaplanet's probably already priced in. It could be worth doing. I mean, it's been boosting Metaplanet stock of 17% after a year-to-date increase of 408%. So it's still a lucrative trade if you can get into these markets, but we want to look for other opportunities like that. Now, there's some massive news, and we are early to the news, even though it's probably on most people's timeline. But this is BuyReal, first on-chain DEX incubated by Bybit. Be live by the end of the month, so this month. And this is a lot of things are coming this month, to be honest. This is all about Club. Club is a new narrative. We've been covering it early, mostly on Foji's Hub, but like it's probably the time to get involved. It's going to be on Solana, and need to see how it does in terms of making things really, really fast. It says, let's build and stay tuned for BuyReal.io, which is currently non-responsive. There's no page whatsoever, but keep an eye on that. And just be very, very, very aware of scammers out there creating fake websites. CEX DEX can work in harmony and amplify one another. This could be a really big thing for Solana. We just need more details. We need to be very, very clear. Bybit is very unlikely to give us value as the end user, but it's not an impossibility. It's still a pretty damn decent exchange, to be honest. And in addition to that, it looks as though like a whole lot of stuff will be off-chain and some will be on-chain. So we don't really know if they're going to slow down your orders or if it's going to be okay. We'll have to wait and see. Now, Virtual Bacon has been talking about XRP. If Ripple manages to pull off its IPO, it could open the floodgates, especially with the unique XRP stock link. And this is all in reference to Circle IPOing at $31 and now trading at $130. $34 like crazy. He talks about how like there's a whole lot of demand for crypto companies. I would like to say that Circle is, heavily owned by Coinbase, and Coinbase are like the US giants. So Ripple could pull off something like this, but they're not going to do it as well as Coinbase. The only value play here, I think, would be if you have a little bit of degen money and you think XRP would become almost the meme coin of this cycle, like allocating some to XRP, probably going to outperform quite a few other tokens. Like will outperform Bitcoin most likely, but you don't want to go too heavy on this. It's just depending if they manage to pull this off, and if all the normies on TikTok and whatnot continue this trend of XRP to $10,000, which is impossible, of course, then up we go. Having a little bag, potentially. This, unfortunately, is Phineas.Sol got drained $118, 118 Sol off 4 wallets by installing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 from Steam, and apparently has a virus in it, is the indicated risk there. Anyone that's gaming out there, use a separate computer. Like if it's from Steam or Ubisoft or whatever, probably still just skip it. And remember, move the majority of your assets onto a ledger or another cold wallet. You want to have your stake Sol on a ledger, staking at fairday.com, of course. You don't want that risk. It's not worth it. Also, another thing on security, like I do think we're coming to a part of the cycle where it's going to be a little bit far more euphoric and fun, and retail will come in. And don't go and dox yourself, and don't go and flex things. Kidnapped TikTok trader held for, I think this was in France, to be honest. France, I think if it wasn't France, then yeah, I think it's France. The security in France is kind of crazy. It's not really a secure place to live if you're in crypto right now. TLDR is he was kidnapped for 50,000 euro in crypto and was released because he didn't actually have that amount of money. Just don't flex as a TLDR. Amani is one of like the top 5, if not, top 5 Solana goats for sure. Really smart person, and he's got this thesis here. This is Gainsey talking to Luca, and Gainsey basically saying, what are we doing with NFTs? Like, they're not doing anything. And Luca's like, I think the value proposition is, think of it as pre-seed to a decent project. As an example, Mad Lads, those that have Mad Lads will probably end up getting whatever their Mad Lad was worth in tokens times 2 or 3, potentially. Not a guarantee, but potentially, as that exchange grows and they push value back to the community that actually made them a success. So what I'm saying here is Mad Lad may be a little bit too expensive for many people. It's like 50 Sol, something like that. But what he's saying is, if you see a cool project doing something and they're kind of raising funds via an NFT, which some people do, like Infinex did, then that could be your proper alpha. You may want to get into something like that. If it's just purely for the vibes or the art or whatever, it probably won't work out in terms of financial risk to reward. Later today on When Shift Happens, there's going to be When Shift Happens, I think that he's the best podcaster, Kevin, in crypto. And I would like to emulate kind of a little bit of his style in some things. But later today, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a podcast out with Doug from one of the core contributors to Fogo Chain. This will be worth watching. Please go to his channel, subscribe. He's going to ask you to do it a few times anyway. Just do it. And these are things you want to listen to in the car. Sometimes they're really good stories. Sometimes they're not. But most of the time, I would say he's the best podcaster in crypto. Someone that I'd like to emulate. So I will be copying some of his stuff, and that's flattery. Go and watch that podcast when it comes out. Now we want to cover new things as well. In the club space, we're talking about lighter trade perpetuals with low cost and low latency. Haven't looked into this. I've just seen that it's been mentioned, and we're doing an analysis on all this sort of stuff. And anything that's released on an SVM or Solana, I'm going to be far more keen on. But this kind of thing here, worth paying attention to, maybe checking it out. It's not like it's nice. It's not as nice as some other things. You can trade with 50x leverage, being in a Sol hype, whatever. So if you want to check this out, you would be early. I'm unsure on so many things. You could go and do dupe, 10x long, whatever. Whole lot of tokens here. I'm not doing my research into this to say it's worthwhile. I'm saying this is another competitor to Hyperliquid. I'm far more keen on Fogo Chain, but I'm telling you of the opportunities so you can get amongst them if you're so inclined. And the last thing that I'm doing, just to be a little bit more transparent with what I'm doing with DYOR, I was going to be doing this specifically with Hawkfire, but it just wasn't working. Maybe it was just because of the token 2022 standard, unsure. But this here is my portfolio. I've entered into some AI 16Z with 2 positions. I thought I entered more than that, but no. I'm thinking the price could come on up with a bit of analysis. So I've just gone single-sided spot all the way up to 55 cents and single-sided spot up to 30%, 36 cents. I will monitor these, and if the chart changes, I will remove them for a loss. Meanwhile, my Sol and USDC, I have 2 positions here. One's 150, 165, and this next one is sitting here to sell higher as we go higher, which I think is coming very, very shortly. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Catch you next video. Cheers.